Okay, hi everybody. It's Wendy Cherry of the Sanctuary Radio Show. It is Wednesday, and we are back in the Sanctuary Radio Show Summer School. So welcome. And I have a guest here today. I consider him one of my brothers. We actually met on a trip to Kemet. So many of you, if you follow me or you read my book, you know that I went to Kemet, which people know as Egypt, the land of the Blacks, and we studied there together, and we bonded. We bonded just like that from day one, and we actually had a similar situation that with jobs, leaving jobs like within 2 weeks of each other. So and becoming entrepreneurs. Him a full-time entrepreneur, me a brand new entrepreneur. So welcome. His name is Mbwebe Ishangi. Welcome.
Peace, sis. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so
Right.
happy that you're on. So he is a second time guest of the Sanctuary Radio Show. So welcome back to the Sanctuary.
Good to be a vet. Word.
Absolutely. So hi, Kimberly. So we are going to take a second. I'm going to ask him to share information about himself, to tell us who he is. And the title of it is Financial Literacy: How to Live Off of Your Investments and Retirement and Savings During a Pandemic. So can you tell us who you are? And while you're doing that, I'm going to share this with my other group.
Okay, cool. Greetings all. Give thanks for tuning in to the Sanctuary Show. Obviously, Wendy's doing amazing work. Just a little backdrop for me is, we're all going through something actually, obviously financially. And that's one of the things that we're thinking about most is, okay, well, how can I take care of my money and protect it and even possibly grow it, even though we're going through a recession / pandemic. And just to give a backdrop of who I am and how I got into this, I had worked for the National Basketball Association for 12 years as a brand identity marketer. And on March 13th, 2017, I was abruptly fired from my job, not because of my work ethic, but because of basically social media posts that I put on my page that deals with the upliftment of Pan-African or African-centered rather people, information and education. Obviously that didn't fit their brand or their shield, what they're about, say, let me go abruptly. And the first thing I thought about is, I could call the EEOC. This is job discrimination. I should be able to do whatever I want to do on my own watch. But the ancestors have a way of working with you. And I think the ancestors, I just come back from doing a business trip in Costa Rica, and where we're working on the Black Land Matters project. And basically, the ancestors were saying, no, don't fight to go back onto the corporate plantation. Be thankful you've been kicked off and live your purpose. And, I'm a heavy reader of spiritual and historical information pertaining to African people, or the upliftment of your mind and yourself, elevation of self. And the first thing that came to mind was I was thinking about is The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho. And it talks about how a person, in their life's journey of trying to attain something, they might, it's a heavy, it's an uphill battle at most times, and you're by yourself and there's not a lot of support. But right when you feel like you want to quit, most people don't realize that they may be a step or two away from achieving that goal. So I equated what was going on right now with losing my job and fighting between the choice of either trying to get my job back or actually totally leave corporate America as a whole. And I chose the latter. And in doing so, raise these questions. The first questions are, I always pose this to my clients. What would be the first thing you think about if you were to show up at your job on a Monday, or you're about to clock out on a Friday and they told you you were being let go? The first thing you think about is your finances, your money, because, this is my source of income. Right. And the second piece is, do you have enough saved? Do you live paycheck to paycheck, which over 60% of Americans do? Right. And the third one is, if you are that type of person that has this job, even though you hate it, you've been there for a long time, it gets to a point where you do end up in retrospect saying, well, I really can't complain. At least I have a job. Right. Well, if you're that type of person, then basically you need to go back to that first question. What if on a Monday or Friday clocking out, you lose that job? We're all going to be in that position at some time or another. And some of us, a lot of times over our careers. So I was in that situation. I'm 40 plus, I'm losing my job. I got to start all over or figure out what I'm gonna do next, because I was always doing my side hustles. And I decided that I wanted to understand money at that point. Even though I'm in my 40s, I wish I did this when I was in my 20s, but now I'm in my 40s. And it's best for me to now use this time to re-educate myself about what finance is in. And it took me to this journey to where now I've created the Cryptowoke Financial Sustainability Movement, where we talk about ways to methodologies to live off your savings and investments.
Okay, so we're gonna unpack a lot of that. Yes, let's unpack a lot of that, because you and I were in the same boat there for a minute. Well, let me just say this. Many people are in that boat that we are out of, which is called the plantation, your job. Even if you love it, even if it fulfills you, you are still trading time for money. So these are concepts that I had to get into my head. Trading my time for money. If you work for somebody else, you are creating wealth for their business with your time, with your talent, with your ideas, and all those things. And you are feeding their children's children. And so what happens is you are getting a little bit of money, but you have to, if you go through what is the traditional route, you turn 67 or 72 now, and then you retire, and then you have fun, or you do things that you want to do. So it took me a while to understand that, because I'm very traditional, a Gen Xer, a second, third generation college goer from my family. Education is very important with my family at HBCU. Whole family went to HBCUs. All of them got post-secondary degrees, some PhDs, and I got my bachelor's. And I was just tired of working for other people. And I wasn't being treated well, right? So you think about all those things, and one of the major things that human beings want is security and safety. And the illusion, and I'm sure you agree with me, Mbwebe, is the illusion is that your job is your security and safety. Mm-hmm. That's a human biological need, is to feel safe. And we think because we have a check coming in or whatever, that we are safe. And many people just found out during COVID that they weren't. So from March 13th, that's like my cutoff. That's like the line of demarcation for me. It was before and then after, right? And I think that after March 13th, some people were let go, but then I think everybody woke up a little bit and is like, it could be me next. And how do I prepare? So you are here to share with us how we can prepare and to use what we already have, or maybe to get a little bit more, or start from the beginning, to put ourselves in a better situation so we are not floundering.
Yes. And that's the thing is, you know, we're in a recession, but we just have to own up to that. And that's something that people are in denial with, because we're also getting hit with the pandemic. Yep. So it's kind of hard to equate the two. Recessions are cyclical. And that's something that I began learning in my journey to being financially educated. Number one, let's just say this, is you'll find that they don't teach this, right? They don't teach you how to manage money. They don't even teach you how to buy a home, which is a fundamental thing you should learn, because everybody wants to own a home, right?
Well, everybody needs somewhere to live.
Right. Right. Or bottom line is managing finances. They don't teach you these things. They tell you to save, but they don't tell you about returns on the saves. They don't tell you about, and here's the other thing is that that day on March 13th, the 14th, the next day, it hit me that no employer is obligated to pay you for the rest of your life. That one day you're either going to be laid off, fired, and if lucky, you'll retire. But at that point, that relationship of them giving you money for trading time is going to end. Still, though, every 30 days, you got bills. You're going to have bills to the day you die. So the question is, you know, how do we, the unfortunate thing is that most people don't understand and figure this thing out until the reality hits them, where they get laid off, or whether they get fired, or if they're lucky to retire and they understand that their retirement money is not going to give them what they thought it was going to give them, because they put in these traditional money markets. So those are the things that, you know, they're not going to display and tell people at large that look, there's other ways to benefit. Why? Because it affects their bottom line. Exploitation, being able to make money off of your money, which is arbitrage. These are tactics that this country, we got enough to deal with, right? Being Black. Now we got to deal with being, financially being discriminated against. But it's also because we're illiterate, and that's the thing. It's like we've been taught that managing money is hard, it's complicated. It's just simple math. It's not geometry. It's plus and additions and divisions and subtractions, and multiplications. But it's just a matter of just understanding that. Go ahead.
No, I'm going to say that's helpful. That so you feel like sort of like the elephant, and when they say, where do you start eating an elephant? You just nibble off the ear. That's where you start. So to just know that it's subtraction and hopefully addition and multiplication.
That's the key.
That's what it is. So I think just learning some of those tips can help anybody. And, you don't have to be in a certain situation. I feel like the majority of the people who are watching my show anyway may have a little something to work with. And and so what the goal is for you to drop little seeds, to do things that we might not have thought before. And then people might want to take your class. Because was it already a year ago, last year that I took your class?
Yeah.
So you offer a class too, where you share in a broader perspective and more tools and more to-dos, like the actual checklist. So what can you share with people? What are some, like maybe a few tips to get started? What do people need to do to get started and even knowing where they are as far as their money is concerned?
Okay. The most basic thing that I pretty much start out with folks is that, as I mentioned, expenses, right? So we all have expenses. You're going to always have expenses. A lot of people don't know what that actual number is. So I call it, and I love acronyms, I call it the FEN, or financial endurance number. This is the number that you need to endure for the month. You need to make this amount of money to cover all your bills. So what you're basically doing is you're accumulating, your T-bills, your mortgage or rent, your car notes, your insurance, even miscellaneous. Like if you consistently buy lunch, what does that amount to for the month? So you know what that number is. And when you know what that number is, then you could counter it with or cross-reference it to your salary. And your salary is basically, can your salary manage that or equal that amount? Now, if you find out what that number is, you'll find either you're in the red or the black with that. In most cases, you may be in the red with it. And now you understand why you might have to get a second job or, ask for that raise or whatever to be able to meet that level. But in most cases, people are in the black. They actually have a surplus from their paychecks. It's just they squander it. They buy frivolous things they don't really need. There's very little investment. And on top of that, for those that are smart, that do invest, they've been investing it in the wrong models. The models that we've been taught to put it in are volatile, highly volatile. And as you mentioned, and I'm sure that your listeners have, and I will pat myself on the back and say I didn't get caught up this year, is January 2nd, I closed out my 401k.
Okay.
I closed it out because I didn't know to this level, but I knew that a recession was coming. And I knew the last recession, I lost $250,000 in my savings, right?
Okay.
And it was not, and this is not forgivable. They don't give it back to you and say, oh, I'm sorry, my bad. The fine print is this is a gamble. You're in Vegas. In Vegas, the house always wins. So the way it works is when you put your money in these traditional money markets, savings, bonds, CDs, 401ks, IRAs, you got to look at the history of return. And what do they tell you? Oh, don't worry about it right now. It'll get better. It's going to go up and down. We have bull and bear markets. So you're worried about touching it 10, 20 years from now. Yeah, that's true. But if you think about all the money you've lost in those 10 to 20 years, you should have much more in the end. And on top of that, ask for that raise, whatever, to be able to meet that level. But in most cases, people are in the black. Right. They actually have a certain. I'm not getting the feedback. I'm sorry. Okay, I think we're good now. So in most cases, you'll find that with I was going to say the 401ks. I got caught up.
Black, and they're like we've been bamboozled to put our stuff in there. Is basically
right. And so what I'm going to say is when you become a certain age and you're ready to pull your money out, what if it happens when it's during a pandemic? Or what if it happens during this recession? So say, for instance, the last recession of '07 through '09, what if I was 65 and I
Right.
was trying to retire? Well, that figure, $2.7 trillion was lost between the senior citizen age group. These are people post-retirement that have put away their money, did their job, did their bid, so to speak, and worked 30, 40 years. And that
Yep.
money's supposed to be there for them to live off of. Whether the market came, crashed, and they lost that money, it wasn't replenished. So it left them with being in dire straits, having to lose their home, moving in with their children, weren't able to afford their doctor visits or their medicine. So we don't know when recessions happen, and you don't want to gamble that situation by
Right.
continually putting your money in something that at a moment's time can go south. And in that case, there's no forgiving. So there's
Right.
no, they're not going to give the money back, and you have to start all over, which is the problem. We
Well, I
reinvest.
think that there is, just like in any other thing. So first I want to shout out Kawan in DC, and Isa, well, Kawan in Maryland, and Isa in DC, and Renee is in Brazil. Welcome you all. If you have any questions, please type them. But what I want to also get us to consider is that this is a reprogramming of the brain.
Absolutely.
We have done the same thing for so long, and we think, so like our parents may have said the 401k was good for them in the 50s, 60s, 70s, however old our parents were, right? 80s, 90s, whatever. And, but what they did back then may not work for us in the modern times in 2020. So, yeah. Did you want to make a point there?
Yes, because we got to understand when did the 401k system start, right? Before 401ks, it was pensions.
Okay.
You think about pensions, what pensions were, some of our grandparents had pensions where they worked their jobs, and when they retired, they got paid for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
They received a paycheck.
Yes.
That was a model for that era because, one, there wasn't as many workers as we have now. There's not tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of employees now.
Right.
So in that situation, businesses could afford, and that's also because this was industrial age. So this is when steel, copper, the railroad magnets, moguls, these things were, all the jobs were in America. So they could afford to pay someone indefinitely, even post-retirement. When companies started to realize it didn't financially make sense for them to do that indefinitely for the rest of, everyone's lives, because people are retiring and then you're hiring new people, which is going to be more retirees eventually.
Yep.
They decided to bring on the 401k system. The 401k system, I think, started in the late 70s, early 80s.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know it was that recent.
Yeah, it wasn't designed to last this long. It was a Band-Aid situation for the pension.
Okay.
Okay. So when the 401ks came, they had their highest returns in the 80s, because what this did is it took the onus off of the companies for putting away retirement money for you, and it put it onto the employer.
Yes.
I mean, the employee rather. So the employee now had to put their money into, and, based upon the advice of these, sharks called brokers would tell you where to put the money at. They would tell you, well, if you put in the more aggressive, policies, you'll make a good return, but you'll get less back, or, the whole volatility of it. But the bottom line is, once they started putting their money into the 401k system, it took the onus off of the corporations, it put it onto the individual, and they had their highest returns in the 80s and in the 90s. But then recession started coming more often. And then they realized this isn't going to work either, because eventually the market is so unpredictable that there isn't that return, but they kept it on the low. They didn't tell you that. They won't tell you how volatile it is. They don't tell you the returns are roughly 1 to 2%. If you were to invest in your 401k for over 30 years, you're going to get about 2% back.
Wow. So let's even think about this, because maybe people don't have a 401k. I don't know what everybody has, but just think about it. Think about a credit card. So our grandparents' generation, if you're Caribbean family, African descent, African American family, your great grandparents did not believe in credit. First of all, they couldn't get credit.
Right.
They believed that being in debt to someone was slavery.
Yeah.
So they paid everybody in straight cash, homie. Like, I remember my grandfather had the back of an envelope and he would just write down all his figures. My mom even bought him a calculator. He did not use it. He wrote it down, or it was in his head. Yeah. And he would calculate all of his stuff, and he would have straight cash. He would have his little wallet in his back pocket, and that joint used to be fat, right? Because he was an entrepreneur too. And then when I was little in the 70s, now this is on the Eastern Shore of Virginia. I see my cousin May here. And when I was little, my grandma thought she was cute with her sister because she had a pennies card. It was the first time that women were actually, not even Black people, but women were able to get a card if their husband signed for them. It used to not be that women could get credit cards. So my grandma then had her pennies card, and she would be at Pennies is JC Penney's and Sears, Roebuck, right? So they would go and then they would have that. But it didn't used to be that way. Our great grandparents and grandparents knew that credit could be, because I know that you have a different philosophy and you can share about credit, but if you use it wisely, not just running up your bill and then you can't pay for it and then you're in debt. But I know that the way that you teach your system is that you can use it in a way to support you. So just think about that. The credit cards only came out in the 50s. And if you're saying 401ks were in the 70s, 80s, they are all ways to make you feel secure. And this is not necessarily a way to be secure. So what do you think about that?
So the very first credit card was a diner's card.
Okay.
Restaurant. So it was high end. I forgot the name of it, but it was a diner's card. That was the first credit card and allowed people to pay without cash. And if you think about it, there's actually a movie out called The Laundromat with Meryl Streep.
The Laundromat. Okay.
Laundromat. It's pretty good. It just talks about shell corporations, just a higher level of how they monopolize things. People are in a position to take advantage. And most of them do it frivolously, and they do it at the expense of, the weaker people, but we're not doing it that way. But anyway, credit cards, we used to be the type where, our grandparents, we didn't have a bank account either. We would put the money in under our mattress,
right?
Our pillow. Some people's pillows, the feathers wasn't feathers, it was dollar bills or whatever. That was what made it so soft. Yes. Or we would dig it in the backyard because it was a practice, as you mentioned. This is something post-slavery that we didn't have much. So whatever we had, we held on to. And then whenever we didn't know the concept, but we did barter, but we didn't know the concept of owing, and we wanted to pay somebody back and forth. That was a principle that we kind of lost because America doesn't go by that principle anymore. So anyway, when you think about the way the monetary system's been set up, is when you have now credit now enables you to leverage and use other people's money. Now, I got to talk about the banking system before all of this, because that's what this is all about, the banking system. And the banking system has a way of monopolizing everyone, not just people of African descent in the United States. It's around the world. They monopolize everyone. And how do they do that? They have this thing that's called the fractional lending system. And the fractional lending system allows banks to percentage X your deposits. So in most cases, it's 10%, or you can 10X a person's deposit. So if you put in $100 into your checking account from a check, the bank automatically turns it into $1,000. This $1,000, all they need to do is keep 100 on the books, your deposit, and they have 900 free dollars that they can then lend out to anyone. And when they lend it out, affixed to it is an interest rate. This interest rate is shared only with themselves, not the actual person who seeded the loan in the first place, which is you and I. Right. So when we wonder why the banking system has these luxurious buildings and these amazing accounts, and they have all these millions of dollars in advertisement, it's because every time someone takes in and deposits something, no matter what the amount, if it's $100, if it's $10,000, they're 10x'd, and they 10x that, and that money is then put in. So this is also the reason why gentrification has been so effective, because we have financed our own gentrification by putting money in our neighborhood banks. Because again, they 10x those deposits, and then they put out loans to developers that are not from our community, that comes into our community to rebuild, push us out, and then the bank, in the return of the interest that they have to pay, the developers have to pay them, pockets that money, and we get zero. And on top of that, in your banking account, you have service fees, right? You got to have a minimum balance. You have you can only have like so many drafts during the month, or you get charged. So basically, you're paying them to manage your money, and we're thinking that's all they're doing. No, they're actually 10xing. They are multiplying, and they are generating and leveraging through arbitrage our money. But we don't understand that, so we keep putting it in there, and it's been done effectively because why now we have is direct deposit.
Yeah.
Prior to direct deposit, banks had to wait for you to walk in,
right,
and give you your check. Now you could go to this bank or that bank, this branch or that branch. So the banks still make money,
yeah,
but they had to wait.
Yeah.
Now with direct deposit, and everybody, corporations pay some on Wednesday, some on Tuesday, some on Friday, some weekly, some bi-weekly, some monthly. So in the case now, banks they've created through direct deposit an influx of continual money coming in on a daily basis from people getting
They
paid.
sell it to you as a convenience.
So check this out.
Yeah.
You give them money, right? In your deposit, but when you want to take a loan out, they'll double the interest rate. You're giving them money for free. Right. You're depositing because because it's been set up that the only way I can pay my bills is through a checking account, or so we think. Okay. So most places, even though you could still pay your stuff with cash, but we understand that the hassle it is right now, and we want that with the expedient transaction. Yeah. So we would rather go online and send everything through online, press return, it's done, opposed to sending it through snail mail, writing it, well, you're not even writing a check, doing a money order, which costs money too. But the bottom line is they've made it so comfortable for us that we don't even see the game that they've done to us, that it's so easy, but they are making money hand over fist because they know guaranteed every Tuesday they're getting a check from me because my employer pays me every Tuesday.
Well, I want to unpack a few things there. So it was funny. Well, first of all, I want to shout out my VSU peeps. I got Lorenzo, and I got my line sister Pin. So first of all, when my uncle died, when my uncle died in August of '98, we were cleaning out the house and we found mad dough in the freezer. And I had never heard of that. I was probably 20 something I was 28, right?
Right.
And I opened up the freezer and I'm like, yo, and it was frozen. So I couldn't really tell. And then I'm looking and I'm like, mommy. Right. She was like, yeah, that's what Black people do. They don't trust the banks. Yep. And so that was my first at 28. That was my first introduction to something like that. The other thing is the comfortability. So, because I like to speak metaphysically too, whenever I'm talking to my guests. The comfort level that we had before Corona is, and Isa also is saying, Isa is my sorority sister from Virginia State. She was saying that in Africa, she's also from Sierra Leone, the Temne people. And she was also saying that in Africa, they still move in cash. Mm-hmm. So that's something that they do. And then my niece is like, let me go look in the freezer. Don't look over here. Asha, don't look here.
Right.
So the other thing is that the convenience. So how convenient was everything before COVID? We were so super chill. We didn't even know how to cut our own hair, do anything for ourselves. We have become very reliant on other people. And you talk a lot about self-reliance and being able to be sustainable in some of the ways that you live and some of the ways that I live. And so it's one of those things where we think it's so convenient and then you get got. Mm-hmm. So I think, March 13th, like I said, is my line of demarcation for COVID it's like, I just been trying, and everybody's at their own pace, trying to awaken myself and to learn these things and learn from people, and don't just side-eye people because it's not something that I've heard of before. I try to learn new things, and them asses was woke up on March 14th when you had to stay home. You had to stay home with your children, and then you couldn't just run out to the store, and you couldn't do the things that you were used to doing. So I'm hoping that you are turning inwards, and you've had 4 months to sort of turn inward so that you can be more reliant on yourself and on people who you trust to learn new things, to do things differently, because you can Google the largest transfer of wealth during COVID. Just Google it for yourself, and you will see people that don't look like you. First of all, we're losing our money and we're losing our lives during this time. Black people are dying during this time, and they're losing their money unless they are tapping into their entrepreneurial gifts and talents and moving away from the fear. So let's talk about that. You were talking about, we got on that because you were talking about the banks. Now, what happens if you have your money in a Black bank? Does that make a difference?
No, they also practice arbitrage. Yeah.
Okay.
They're just not as good at it. And well, I'll strike that. It's not that they're not as good at it. They also face discrimination.
Yes.
They're Black. So there's those things too. But I'm still I'm still not, and I might get hit over the head with this because I am very African centered and about people doing for self. But the Black banks, they don't have the amount of equity. And yes, if we all put our money in, yes, but at the same time, when you put your money in there, you're still financing that institution to do things that they're not honest to give us a return. And that's what, if I loan you some money, then, and you hold it for a long period of time, and you also capitalize on it, it's only right for you to give me some of that return, because without my initial deposit, you wouldn't be able to get what you get. But the banking system isn't designed that way, and we don't know that. So that's a thing so I'm not saying don't invest in Black banks, but you're not going to get a different experience as well. It's going to be the same kind of experience.
So are you telling us to just go remove all of our money and put it in our mattress, in the freezer, or in a tin can? Okay, so what are you saying?
So what I am saying is a very good point, is it's time to rewire our way of thinking. Okay. And instead of being the used, be the user, and not in a frivolous way as they do it, but learn how to use it and use it as leverage. So what I mean by that is, okay, we live in a capitalistic world, so we're going to need money. Yes. Okay. So it's about how you use it. Now, if you take it out and put it under your mattress, it doesn't grow, right? If you put it into the bank, or you put it into a CD bank, 401k, whatever, there's potential for it to grow, but there's also potential for it to not grow. You can lose. Right. So the thing is that when it comes to credit and this things I talk about in credit, is there's a way that you can use credit as a way to build your portfolio to use their money instead of your money. Okay. And how that works, I go into deep detail. I'm going to plug it. The class I do, Cryptowoke Financial Sustainability Movement, I teach this course in 5 sessions on how you can use leverage to free yourself and live off your savings and investments. But one of the things you can do, and I'm not saying it's about your credit score, it's not all about that, but for us starting out, because we don't come from endowments and funds that will heir to us, we have to start from zero. The most tangible thing we can work on is facing the mirror and looking at what our portfolio looks at from a credit perspective. What is our score? And what your score is, and then how can you improve it? I'm not talking about dispute letters. I'm talking about how do you use leverage to then pay things off in abundance, opposed to that minimum $25 a month, which is extending the nature of your loan. As you mentioned, like with this coronavirus, that they extended people's loans, they gave you 3 months off, right? But they're going to want you to pay that 3 months. They added it to your loan in the end. And then there's a certain part of the year where they're going to want you to pay all 3 of those months in one lump sum. There's no guarantee you'll be able to do that if the economy isn't going, right? And we're also facing a situation right now too with the unemployment page check's supposed to stop in the end of this month. July 29th, that, if the economy is not in shape, there's going to have to be another form of bailout, right? But the bottom line is that finances, you can't get away from it. Right. Okay, so we need to face it and then figure out, because there are people that are profiting during this era because they're using strategic methods. Whereas we're sitting here and complaining about stuff and waiting on the stimulus check, we can be actually employing some of these same ideologies and get the same results if we stick to the blueprint. It's as simple as that. We don't need to deviate from anything. Just do what the rich folk have been doing. And then you may not be rich, but you'll be sustainable. And that's what I teach, is about being sustainable first. Sustainable is reaching your FEN, your financial endurance number. What is that monthly number? And can I reach that every month? Now, your job may allow you to do it right now, but your job can be let go. If you let go, then you can't reach that number. So how else do you do it? You do it through passive income. And I teach you how to do that in my course.
So you said, and I think I lost my train of thought, but you said, I forgot what you said. Okay, I lost my train of thought, but it's a mindset. And really, that's what I want you to understand. It's a mindset and it's a change. So we have to decolonize our brain. This show is all about decolonizing the brain. We are always, there's so many levels. It's like an onion. Yeah. Take one layer off and you like, damn, I got another 6 layers to take off. But you just do it in baby steps, a little bit at a time. So this is a way to do it because you may have been taught another way. I think it's just good to have a seed planted. This is what the whole show is about, a seed being planted so that you can consider or not something different.
May I add this? I like to use, now I talked about Paulo Coelho earlier, about personal legend and about what is your purpose for life. We were not born to have a job career that's going to let you go when you're at a certain age and can't take care of yourself for the rest of your life. Right. So one of the things I talk about is the garden metaphor. The garden metaphor is something that talks about how do you, when you have a garden, it just doesn't start growing food, right? You got to put in time. One of the things that rich folk talk about is called a 5-hour rule. The 5-hour rule is if you're not spending at least 5 hours a week on something that you're passionate about, you're being irresponsible. So for me, it's about spending time on this with this garden metaphor of, okay, finances and food and survival, it's a garden. You got to toil that garden. You got to go in there and rip up the roots. You got to soil the oats to get it to the point where the soil is rich. And then you got to plant it in there and you just don't leave it. You got to come back tomorrow and check it out and scope it and add a little water or drain a little bit out, whatever. What I'm saying is that we've had all this time in our hands, 4 months plus, complaining, and very little of us, I'm not going to say that. I'm hoping more than a little of us have been actually actively doing something to make this change. As you mentioned, the things have been taken away from us. We can't go get our hair done. We can't go out and eat. We can't go to the club. So what are you doing with your time? And if you're not using this as like the pioneer age of how they were exploring the next frontier of what this new normal is going to be, then you're going to get caught up into whatever they give you. And for me, I can't settle that way. So for me, I got into gardening, actual physical gardening, like growing food, because what if the trucks can't make it? I'm learning how to, exactly. I'm learning how to cultivate seeds. I mean, bartering is something that is a very real thing we may get back to is, okay, I got some tomato seeds, you got some potato seeds, like, let's just barter. Like money may not be an issue or it might not be in existence but if it is, obviously you want to plan so. But my point is that we have enough time on our hands that take your whatever hours of complaining, but then also divvy that up and put a minimum 5 hours a week on figuring out how can I, create and sustain food, shelter, and water. Clothing don't mean nothing. We could be cartoon characters right now and wear the same thing every day. That don't matter. But right now, right? But the main thing we should be thinking about is water, shelter, and food. And how can you attain those things? How can you maintain, grow, and share if you want to, at least with your immediate family? Yes. So those are the things that we have, and it may seem like it's a lot of stuff that we have to deal with, but what better time to do it? Because you have a chance to be independent. You have a chance to break yourself from that dependency, wake up and live your life purpose. So that's, to me, is the focus, is like really taking this on as not as a victim or I'm scared. Yeah, I'm scared, but I'm also going to fight. I'm actually going to create. I'm going to learn more. This is the best time to be learning stuff because there's no pressure. There's no pressure from our jobs. There's no pressure from to be there. We can work from home remotely, but at the same time, we can pick up a book or put on a YouTube video or DIY and learn how to build something. This is the time to do it because we're going to need these skills because AI, I didn't even talk about that.
Artificial intelligence.
It's going to take away these jobs. So, we're going to have other skills.
So let's go back to a few things. So first of all, hello.
Boom. That's what's up.
I started my garden growing class
again, right?
In Copa Homeschool.
Right.
Israel is my teacher. So we about to get these sweet potatoes popping.
Word.
But I got this idea because you sent that video with that man who was hyped. And look, here we go.
Yep. See,
Little stuff. I'm starting little.
how empowering is that when
Yep.
you do it yourself, when you can actually do it yourself and you see the results, and it ain't hard. It's just the application, just doing it. And once you do it, it becomes contagious.
So I got Lorenzo on here who started his garden 2 weeks ago. And then Maya is here, my roomie from Kemet. So she's saying, hey.
Well, hey, Maya, what's up? Peace, peace.
So it's not easy, but it can be. So it just depends on what you think about it. What's happening now is hard. Seeing people die is hard. If you're seeing your money dwindle, that's hard. So it's self-reliance. It's nobody's coming to save you. I love to say that, and that's a shocker for some people. You can Google, and I keep saying I'm going to remember where I found it, and I never do. But you can Google. The title of an article from a few weeks ago was Black people died and other people transferred about 72 million or $1 billion worth of wealth. That was the title. And that shocked me and it made my stomach hurt because it's true.
It is.
And if we keep doing the same things the same way, we're going to get the same results. So Mbwebe is correct. Now is the time. If you didn't learn from that first month and a half of being shell-shocked, being scared, but knowing that you had the power. So this is what I'm sure Mbwebe would share too. You have the power. We have the power. It's a mindset. It's a shift. This ain't nothing I was thinking about 5 years ago. Nothing. But with new situations come new things that you got to do to make sure that you preserve yourself. So it's about self-preservation. I'm past the whole self-care Sundays. No, I'm on self-preservation every day. What do I need to do? I need to eat. When they dry up the food supply, you can go to BJ's or one of those big box stores or a small box store now. It's not 100% filled in there. There's a lot of missing stuff that we have seen before. You got to have a place to live. So you focus on the things that are the most prominent need at the moment. And then you work from there. So can you give us, we have a few minutes left. Can you give us maybe 3 tips? We're going to talk about your class and we're going to give the website and places for people to go. I suggest taking the class. I took the class. It was very insightful. And, I'm going to be talking to Mbwebe to refresh myself. But what are the 3 things that you can share that people can do immediately to feel like they're making some progress?
First of all, understand that, we are our solution, as you mentioned. And we also are our ancestors, our living ancestors. I've basically just gone back in history, because I'm a history nut, in how did the first settlers, what did they faced? They didn't have cable, they didn't have, grocery stores. So what did they do? They learned how to take care of the basic necessities, as you just mentioned. So the first thing I would say is write down what's most of value to you. To me, it's water, shelter, and food. Okay. When you have those things, 3 things working together, at least I can survive. So what does that mean? That means I got to get my hands dirty. I got to buy some soil. I got to buy some seeds. If I have an apartment, which I have, and I don't have a backyard, I can grow indoors. There's hydroponics. There's grow bags. There's different things that you can learn on how to grow the basic foods that you need. You might not be able to grow steak, but we should eat that anyway. But the bottom line is those things. And then secondly, I would say is to understand your resources, right? How can you allow your resources to grow? If you still have a job, you're lucky, but also understand you're on the clock, because the economy is going to still start going down and there will be layoffs, and you may be one of those that gets laid off. So what do you have in place to sustain your basic necessities? That's the point 1 I made. So learning how to use finances to put things away. The third step is, I am going to plug it because I really feel like this works, and I only want to populate this idea with our people because we're the least to get this kind of information. It's always over our head, and when we do find out about something, it's a 4th quarter opportunity. Take my class. Cryptowoke movement.com I have a 5-session class. It's the Cryptowoke Financial Sustainability Movement, where I show you how to live off your savings and investments in 5 basic 1-hour sessions, and put you in a place where not only is your credit getting stellar within a few months, then you are also able to leverage that credit to live off of it and use other people's money instead of your own, and depending on your paycheck. Doing all this without getting another job, doing all this without gambling in the monetary system that we've been traditionally told to invest in, using the ones that you don't know about that the rich people use, the Warren Buffetts, the Oprahs, Susie Ormans, where they put their money, how they make their gazillions from. So those are the basic 3 things I want to leave you with.
Okay, well, thank you. So I wanted to say 2 things. The Black business, like everybody was on this whole support Black business thing, and that's awesome. Please do buy my book, support Mbebe's class. Anybody else that you know that has a business, do. I mean, we have to recycle the dollars into our own communities. I was listening to some money talks the other day, maybe last week, and they were saying that African American, and this is the disparity. So these are not the numbers, but this is the disparity in the numbers. If Black people communally have $100 million worth of wealth together combined, Hispanics have 437 million combined. Look at that gap, and they are way behind other people. It's just that they support their stores, they support their little shops, they support each other with all the things they do. They're very communal. They live together. They live in small communities. I live here in Virginia, and they deep over, and they're always together, and they're always hanging out, and they're always doing stuff, and they're always at each other's stores. It's that simple. Yeah. Supporting each other. And then the other thing is that Black people are dying. COVID is one thing, but the underlying factors, I always bring it back to nourishment and health, because that's what my specialty is in. And when you're stressed about money and stressed about where you're going to pay your mortgage or your rent, or where you're going to get these clothes from, or how you're going to get these kids educated or whatever, that diminishes your immune system. Right now, you need your immunity more than you ever have, because there's a virus that they made up and that is attacking us and is killing us. So why not take steps to help yourself mitigate some of that stress that you could have that is also can affect your body? Learn how to do a class. I'm going to have my teacher come on here and talk a little bit about how to grow your own food. That's a whole nother conversation. But Mbwebe is here to talk about your money. And that's what it's all about, money. Everybody is talking about money. And for those of you who may have been taught that money is bad, that's BS. Money is amazing. I love money. I love the smell of money. Money allows me to travel the world. Money allows me to do all the things that I love to do. So you can be afraid of money and you can say money's evil. You do that if you want to. Money allows you to have the access to do the things that you want to do. Money is energy. And if you're afraid, scared energy don't make money. It's an attraction. And we didn't even go into the energy of money and the emotions of money and how money is current. You either giving it or you're getting it. Okay. And stagnant money, we didn't talk about any of those things, but those things are true. So even, if you want to Google Lynn Twist, the soul of money, and she breaks down the energetic perspective of money. So if you're stressed out, if you're worried about your next paycheck, and this is coming from somebody who was a new entrepreneur whose whole book tour was canceled, and I got 150 books in my trunk. That's who you're talking to. But I refuse to be afraid. I take the advice from my friends, and I chew the meat and I spit out the bones of stuff that doesn't work for me, because everything ain't for everybody. So I understand that too. So please contact him. I will put the information in the box. You can follow him at Cryptowoke. Is that on all platforms?
IG, Facebook. I don't do Twitter. But
now, what about your YouTube? Because you have some videos on there.
Yes. Yes. Just do a search for Cryptowoke Financial Sustainability, or just put Cryptowoke and it'll pop up. And I put series up there. And I have a new book coming out in about 10 days. Okay. The book is called A Pot to Piss In: Intergenerational Wealth Planning for Black People. And just a little background on the pot to piss in, why. Back in the day, status before there was plumbing and toilets, your status, if you had a pot in your house to, where you put your release, when you have to use the restroom where you could put it, you were considered high status, high elite status if you had just a pot in your house where you would relieve yourself and throw it out. Well, we didn't have that. So now I believe we do have a pot to piss in, and learning the
Yeah.
methodologies that folks have been using to grow their money outside of the traditional ways we've been seduced to believe is the only way. So that's the title of the book, and that's going to be out on July 17th.
And where can they find that book?
You can find it at, just go to cryptowokemovement.com, or you can go to my other site, theghettotimes.com, DAGHETTOTYMZ.com. And it's being sold there as well.
So I will put those in the show notes. So
Okay.
do you have a class that's already coming up?
I do classes, one-on-ones and on demands. So actually I just finished the course last night. I do groups and individual, and I also have a self-paced course as well for those that just want to get in and get it all done at one time. You can do that too. So this is what I do for a living. And more importantly, again, I want to get this information out to our people because no one's going to give it to us. No one's going to share this with us. And unless we do it ourselves, we're going to find ourselves still not even beginning the race. And we need to get in this race and lap a few people.
Well, I thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks as well.
Thank you for everybody for joining us. If you have any questions, please continue to put them in the chat. Does anybody have any questions, first of all? And thank everybody for joining. But put them in the chat. We will go back and answer them. I will put all of his information in the show notes so that you can check it out. And next week, we will be talking about how important it is for human touch during this time. Again, this is a toolkit. We are adding more tools to the toolkit to be sustainable through COVID. The second wave is already here, and post-COVID, because we're going to survive. But we don't want to just survive, we want to thrive. So that's the goal of summer school. Thank you, Maya, for joining, family.
Yeah. Yes.
I will see you all the next time in the sanctuary. Peace.
Yes.